the grand jury in Texas does not find enough to criminally charge Deshaun Watson. 9 accusations, none were found to be criminal. And Rappaport then tweets, Deshaun Watson will not face charges. His criminal matters are over.
Oh, that should be it.
It is trade time. And Carolina, I still think Carolina gets Deshaun Watson.
I do too. I would put him at the top.
I said that earlier this week. Carolina, to me,
is more hungry for a big-time quarterback than any remaining owner in Elite.
Who was the first to report that news? Have you seen? I'm
Rappaport
trying to see. It was all
retweeted
it's like the same time. Rappaport, Schefter. I'm seeing a number of people tweet it.
I think there are some
I'm trying to
people
retweet the right person.
near the
Read it
courtroom,
first.
like Chuck Sarah Bar Shop is probably outside the courtroom door.
No, it was a local reporter that Rappaport retweeted. But the big news here is if you're an NFL owner looking for a reason to trade for him, like if you're looking for odds in your favor that he plays next season if you trade for him, this is an indication that you had 9 accusers go in front of a grand jury. And by the way, he pled the 5th. And whenever he was on the stand, and they didn't find enough to criminally charge.
And the other 11 are not making criminal complaints. They were only civil, correct? Out of the 22, there were only 9.
So 9
charges.
of the 22, 13 was all civil.
So I mean, this is huge news for the offseason because this has been how quick will this get resolved in the courts? Where last year after the trade deadline, we were all waiting on February 22nd, or 23rd, somewhere around in there. And when that date came and passed, and we were detailing it in real time, how both sides were arguing whether or not they should proceed without all the depositions being done. The judge allowed these 9 to go ahead and go in front of the grand jury and allowed told Watson and Rusty Hardin that his client would be on the stand. And ultimately, he pled the 5th on questions asked to him based on reports. And it is Molly Baker Kukolich
that had the first report?
Yes. She is an executive producer at KHOU, one of the news stations in Houston, outside the courtroom. Grand jury does not find enough to criminally charge Deshaun Watson. So I think that this is enough for NFL teams to start to make offers to Houston and make it real.
Well, that's the number one topic going forward. There was no clear-cut
he's the number one thing.
He's the number one guy.
He's the number one player. I mean, he is a franchise changer.
But the civil cases remain out there and unresolved. Let's also mention that. So there's still a hesitancy, at least where I sit, to trade what has been discussed in exchange for Deshaun Watson, because who knows what's coming with all this.
Was he going to get suspended over civil cases? I think not. Not by the league.
Yes, they could.
Well, keep in mind,
the league is suspended for things that aren't criminal before.
Keep in mind, the Roethlisberger, when he was suspended years ago.
Not to say they would, Paul, but they could.
He settled out of court. He settled out of court and then was suspended right after that by the league. And fast forward to now, Harden says his client, he doesn't want to settle because in some eyes, even though it's not an admission of guilt, it's an admission of no contest, however you want to look at it, they could say, hey, he settled out of court. This is some type of admission that they don't want this out.
But
right?
what Roethlisberger settled, if I'm not mistaken, was a criminal complaint.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what Watson would be settling is a civil complaint.
Right.
I think if you're an NFL,
keep in mind, he did not settle these cases. That's important.
He could also still settle these 9 criminal cases.
But these cases are dead.
They're
dead, but
my point is he didn't settle this before going in front of the grand jury.
Right.
That's my point. And he leaves without any charges criminally.
I mean,
there was in the Roethlisberger deal, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a criminal complaint, and then he settled after the criminal complaint happened.
He made it go away.
Was he officially charged with it? I don't think so.
It was pending.
Yeah, and then he settled before
But
that
this
happened.
is no longer
So
pending. This is gone.
Yes, but my point is, it's the similar thing. He could still settle with the 9 women who have put down criminal charges as well as civil claims.
But
That's right.
he doesn't have to
So-
settle the criminal thing anymore because the criminal thing is gone.
But he could still settle the civil part of it.
Yeah, but that's a different
There's
deal.
not as much incentive.
Yeah. I think if you're an owner, if you're David Tepper, look, you still have to, you're still going to take a hit from your fan base for sure. And the guy's a slimy character for sure. But he's not facing criminal charges. I think you say to your people, look, I'm uncomfortable with the things he's accused of doing, but he's not facing criminal charges.
But, and they will. But when all this started, there were 22 civil lawsuits out there. Those remain pending. So the 22 civil lawsuits that everyone was harping on as to why the Texans and the NFL and everyone else couldn't move on it, those are still out there. But this is a significant development that a grand jury did not indict him, move forward with the indictment to take this to a criminal trial. Of the 22, 9 of those were criminal charges as well. And the grand jury's not indicting him on the information presented in front of the grand jury.
And
That's significant.
Didn't he have civil settlements lined up for all but, how many, 2? When they was talking to Miami, when Ross wanted him to get them all cleaned up, he had settlements for all but X number, and I thought it was a very small number, 2 or 3.
I don't know that he had the settlements. He was close to a settlement with a bunch of them.
For all, but there were a few standouts that he couldn't break through on.
I think from the criminal versus civil aspect of this,
day.
it's a huge day for this because no matter where you stand on whether or not he should play, whether or not the NFL should have stepped in last year, again, it's the civil lawsuits. They're still pending, and that's what we were all discussing last year. But from the criminal angle of this, there's not going to be a trial for these 9 because the grand jury says there's not enough evidence to move forward with it.
There's no more criminal angle.
And to me, from the 30,000-foot view of this, that is huge from an ownership perspective if you're looking to trade for a guy that you feel like is going to impact your organization on the field. And that's what they would be trading for. You need some type of guarantee that he's available for you, that he's the Deshaun Watson of the 2019-2020 season.
He's much, much more tradable right now than he was
Absolutely.
10 minutes ago.